So there's breaking news coming in on the Rafale deal. The Supreme Court has dismissed the Rafale probe plea. And this is the latest that we are getting in from our sources, that the verdict by three-judge bench of top court has actually dismissed the Rafale probe plea. And the bench was headed by Chief Justice of India. The Congress had alleged that government had renegotiated deal for benefits of Anil Ambani's defense firm. Now, to bring us more details and add perspective to this news story, I'm joined in by a political editor, Mr. Karthikeya Sharma, who joins me live from New Delhi. Karthikeya, how do you finally analyze this in the current political scenario? It's clearly a win-win situation for the BJP.
See, let's read out what the court has said.
Right.
Now, first of all, to our viewers, all writ petitions dismissed by Supreme Court. So that's the basic fact of the case. That's the order. All writ petitions have been dismissed by the Supreme Court, which means multiple petitions has been thrown out of the window. Now, the court said that the extent of permissible judicial review with respect to contracts relating to defense procurements have to be decided on fact-to-fact basis. Then court says, we are satisfied that the process for procurement has been complied with. There is financial advantage. So the court says there is financial advantage in the deal. Then it says earlier deal was not forthcoming. It also goes on to say cannot sit in judgment. Cannot sit in judgment over decision to go in for purchase of 36 aircraft in place of 126, Ranjan Gogoi said. He also said on pricing, not the job of the court to get into the issue of pricing of the Supreme Court. And it's up to the vendor and not the central government to decide, not the job of the court to go into it. So, Supreme Court has been pretty much clear, they have dismissed it. They have gone into the detail of the issue too.
All right, we have senior lawyer KTS Tulsi joining us on the phone line. Let's quickly go across to Mr. Tulsi. Mr. Tulsi, the Supreme Court has finally dismissed the Rafale probe plea. What is your take on this verdict?
You see, they have primarily only gone into the question of process of acquisition. And if the process of acquisition they find the process is not violated, the rules of acquisition have not been violated. They have dismissed the deal, but I don't think they have gone into the issue of pricing, because they said that we are only limiting ourselves to the process of acquisition, and the court cannot sit in appeal so far as the acquisition, the need for the aircraft, etc., and what price, all that the court can't sit in appeal. But so far as corruption is concerned, that is an offense. They say that it doesn't require court-monitored investigation, but investigation is not barred, which means that there will be an investigation sooner or later with regard to corruption, whether there are kickbacks directly or indirectly which have reached somebody, wherever it has reached.
Precisely, very rightly said. Karthikeya, do you hear that? Mr. KTS Tulsi is actually saying that there may not be a court-monitored investigation, but there might be one later on.
Yes, Mr. Tulsi, my question is that if now court does not want to get into an investigation part, you just said, sir, there will be investigation. How can there be an investigation when court says that it does not find anything wrong and there was a financial advantage? These are the words of the three sitting justices.
Well, we have to read the judgment and see fine print. But if the judgment relates only to process and says that there is no need of court-monitored investigation, it doesn't mean that there is no corruption and investigation is barred. Investigation can still take place at any stage.
But isn't it a big relief to the government of India, sir? Because Rafale became politically weaponized like Bofors.
It is a relief to the government, there is no doubt about that. It is a relief to the government so far as cancellation of the earlier deal and reducing the number of aircraft is concerned. On that, the court has been satisfied with regard to the process that was followed. But well, it's a final court. The final court is always right because there is no appeal from this court.
But then, sir, wouldn't it blunt the edge of the opposition in Parliament, because opposition has been demanding JPC?
But JPC will still be there. Because the question is, how are you paying 3 times the amount? This is not a judgment on price.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Mr. Tulsi, for joining us. Let's straight away cut across to Nalin Kohli, one of the advocates representing the government.
राफेल डील देश हित में जो किया गया था, इसमें हर प्रक्रिया जो है
सरकार को राहत है एक तरीके से।
राहत की क्या है? सरकार जब कोई गलत करे तो सरकार पे प्रश्न उठना चाहिए, लेकिन सरकार गलत ना करे। पुराने जमाने में जैसे डिफेंस डील में घोटाले होते थे, जहां घोटाला ना हो घोटाले की बात करना जबरदस्ती, क्या ये उचित है?
So that's Nalin Kohli actually stating that the government has had a clean state. There has been no such sort of corruption. Karthikeya, it's also important to talk about because Mr. Joseph had constantly been questioning the legality of the retrospective amendment made to the offset policy. What was the need to amend an offset policy and guidelines with retrospective effect? This is something that also the verdict was supposed to talk about.
No, see, these are the basic details which are coming out right now. Like, for example, people can generally spin the verdict around an obita dicta, but everything becomes very clear once you go through the written order. And I think that my understanding is, it is a political relief. Opposition will have to accept that the campaign they had built to counter Narendra Modi's anti-corruption agenda has been rocked by Supreme Court. That has to be accepted. All
right, Karthikeya, we are also joined in by senior lawyer Mr. Majid Memon, who is joining us. Mr. Memon, how do you analyze the entire verdict, and how does this actually impact the politics in India at the moment?
With respect to what the lordships have said today by disposing of the plea relating to Rafale, I would only suggest that, well, what is being sought primarily by the petitioner, which of course was only responding to the call from the people of this country, because ordinary common man, ordinary taxpayer, their anxiety was not in relation to the policy of the government which was being suspected. Or we have also not, nobody has alleged against the government that this was something which was against the interest of the country's security. Certainly, that is not the case at all. The only fundamental 2 questions were there, which unfortunately have remained to be answered with highest respect to the highest court. And number 1 is that certainly the money paid for this deal is public money. It's from the taxpayers and the exchequer's pocket. And therefore, we would want to know how much money has been paid for a particular deal. Number 2 is that how is it that the novice company of Ambani was brought into picture and was given preference over Hindustan Aeronautics Limited? These are the 2 only questions which needed to be probed and answered. But I'm afraid, since I have not seen the orders of the Supreme Court, I'll not be able to comment. But as far as the outside litigation, outside court, public court is concerned, this is certainly going to haunt.
Right. On that note, Mr. Memon, Karthikeya, yes. Mr. Memon has raised a very valid point. He said that the verdict must question the choice of an IOP, which was Reliance Defence, as per former Union Minister Arun Shoury's petition also, and Congress.
Absolutely, but Mr. Memon, the issue is very immediate. There is a demand for JPC. Even today, the Parliament got adjourned. Rajya Sabha got adjourned on the issue of Joint Parliamentary Committee. What happens to the political momentum which has been built by the opposition on this issue? It goes out of the window because these are legal technicalities, sir.
No, see, we would persist, and I don't think today's development by Supreme Court's order would in any way weaken our case for a JPC demand for the purposes of answering these 2 fundamental public-related questions.
Right.
They are not security-related questions. Because, we have not raised any question with regard to the technicalities, etc. of the deal. And that would continue to be there. An entire opposition would solidly stand and demand and continue to demand JPC on this.
But sir, if I know, but the reading from the Supreme Court cannot be selective. But some of the statements themselves are very revealing, Mr. Menon. Like, for example, the court says perception of individuals cannot form the basis for interference. There was an advantage in the purchase of the aircrafts. Earlier deals weren't forthcoming. These statements themselves are very, very suggestive in a way that the court just did not find any merit in the case, sir.
Just correct you by saying that why should Supreme Court be made to say this? Let the government say it boldly on the floor of the House. That is the proper forum. The House is the proper forum and the government is the proper forum to the question. Straight away, let the government tell this to the House. We will deal with it in the House rather than taking a verdict from the highest court.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Menon. Thank you, for speaking to us. So, it's pretty, it's far more complex, Akansha. The sense I'm getting is
absolutely
that legally the story might have met an end, but I think politically they are going to persist with it because I don't think it's going to end like that. But how much gravitas that political campaign will have, one will have to wait, because if you remember the whole Kamdar, Namdar and Chaukidar, those words and the thief which was being used and the sloganeering, I don't know what will happen to them.
But Kartikeya, don't you think that the dismissal of this Rafale probe plea is going to actually further fortify BJP's 2019 campaign agenda? Because if you look at Augusta middleman Christian Michel, he's already been extradited. Vijay Mallya's extradition procedure has already been gaining momentum. A red corner notice was issued against Mehul Choksi yesterday. So this actually comes as another feather to their cap.
Not only that, you see, my larger understanding is that generally political parties pick up issues for simple electoral reasons. Congress had picked up Rafale issue for a very strong electoral reason. They perhaps wanted to dent the anti-corruption campaign of the Prime Minister. What was the image of the Prime Minister by 2014, 15, 16? Corruption, he goes against it.
Right.
Now, suddenly you have an issue on which you're saying the corruption took place right under your nose. Corruption took place right under your nose. So it dents that image. Nirmala Sitharaman had to come out. Many people had to come out and give interviews. So my understanding is that this will have a political life. Judicially, it has, in terms of judicial process, it has met its end. I don't think there's going to be any review petition on this issue. No. Court has dismissed all the petitions. What will happen is that there will be a political discussion on it.
As you rightly said, that the demand for the JPC would still continue.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, Akansha.
Right. So on that note, let's leave it at that and let's see how far this actually carries on, especially taking into consideration that this case has been of tremendous political significance, not only for the BJP but also the opposition.